What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Hope that you're doing okay today. Hope that you're doing fine and your families are doing fine. Today I am bringing you my album review of Kate Bush's The Sensual World. Sensual World. This would be her sixth studio album, which was released in 1989. And as with most of the album reviews, you are more than welcome to go ahead and go down in a playlist below where I will link all of my first listens and initial reactions to each of the tracks in the album. But for now, let's go ahead and dive right in. Spellbinding seduction, cool affirmation, and palatial pipes, so pleasing, form a primary part in this lush and spirited release from Miss Bush. The Sensual World finds Bush in a place of creative comfort, coming 4 years after the release of her ever popular and landmark album, Hounds of Love, trading the grandiose and the idealistic for mood and emotion. Sensual World is a vibrant inhale of femininity, love, and relationships, and a confident exhale of the freedom to pursue passions and touch. There's also a very spiritual connective tissue that binds a lot of the tracks together, not only musically but narratively. For example, between The Fog and Reaching Out. The Fog, which deals with the uncertain feeling of gaining independence, the ability to let go, and finding your footing, while the following track, Reaching Out, is kind of the inverse, describing a child, for example, instinctively reaching out for something to hold on to, describing people reaching out for something to hold on to. And just as an aside, while we're talking about those two tracks, I do think it's interesting that in The Fog, it's a father figure who's teaching Bush to let go, while in Reaching Out, it's Mama that she keeps reaching out for. I don't know, it's just interesting. It's these topical thoughts and themes that she shows us in the album that reveal a more matured and experienced Bush, and I think the music around her demonstrates all of this as such. Out of the monochromatic pages of Ulysses, Kate steps out with the first track in this very tangible opener, which is the title track. With breathy singing and orgasmic expressions, the track blooms and blossoms. David Spillane's Uilleann Pipes, which took me a little bit to figure out how to pronounce, graces the music here and in a lot of other moments with some Irish culture. This is a very brave and appropriate opener that really sets a certain mood and precedent for what's going to follow. Love and Anger follows us up with some very elusive piano, thriving rhythms, and outcries that lay bare the emotions before us of love and anger. Giblin dances with plucky pops of the bass. Gilmore's sensational guitar brings back to light in the chorus, the line of harmonies that just swing away in the back. This is all just a very thick, atmospheric piece that has a lot of depth to it. It's a spirited celebration, even though lyrically Bush herself has no idea exactly what this one is about. The Fog is one of my favorite tracks on the album. It's a deeply dramatic and fluid piece, placing emphasis specifically on space and depth. The strings draw attention to the currents of the waves, the drums to the crest, and voice to note. And that just makes sense since the story of the song takes place in a body of water. So it's just kind of appropriate to actually use the anatomy of a wave in comparison to the movements of the music. It's filled with a powerful message, wonderful harmonies, thoughtful dimension. All of that really just makes this a standout track to me. The chorus of Reaching Out is probably one of the best moments on the album, just like showing the sheer power from Kate. The uplifting risings give way to moments of quiet contemplation with piano and strings. It's a song that ends as quickly as it begins, yet it does leave a mark and an impression of grandeur in the first half of the album. Has fraternizing with the Fuhrer ever been so fun? A game of chance is played with the coin tossed, fate and chances left up in the air, with heads were dancing. Bush's flair and note for taking a dark idea and kind of spinning it on its head is one of her most fascinating abilities as a songwriter, and I think that in a song like this, it's really demonstrative of how strong of a songwriter she is. This idea of her character being really enamored with this stranger, only for her to be unknowingly dancing with Hitler himself, of all people, is just extremely interesting and creative. And you have to mention Mick Karn, who brings his ever-flowing and ever-moving bass the fretless into the ballroom, twisting and contorting around the two figures as they dance. Even the strings begin to downturn and wither away after the twist is revealed. It really represents this wonderful marriage between narrative and music, which is once again songwriting. Deeper Understanding is one of those songs that, while written many, many years ago, it's extremely appropriate for today. Turning to machines to find comfort, love, and deeper understanding, where we were perhaps unable to find it with one another, with people and those who are around us. There's plenty of room for conversation, both musically and narratively here. You can imagine the character alone loading up this program and forming a relationship with her. It's kind of like that movie Her. Even though I've never seen it, it sounds like a somewhat similar idea. And it's also the first time that we actually hear from the trio Bulgarka, whose voices are very effective, whose harmonies really enrich the atmosphere, this new electronic and digital age that Kate is exploring in the themes. And the rich bass and light piano kind of fill the air with this sort of musical compassion. Butting in with a stark demeanor and seething strings between a man and a woman is filled with an underbite of aggression, from the crunchy guitar to the gritting between her teeth delivery from Bush. There's a palpable sense of danger, which makes sense and is very fitting with the song, as it describes getting unnecessarily involved in a kerfuffle between kindred spirits. I'm so sorry, I just really love my alliteration. Never Be Mine, the way that the post-chorus opens up with the fretless, the trio Bulgarka, they leave such an impression here and an impact in the space and the timing of the music. This track has a very open air feeling to it, as we're sent gliding over emerald fields and green hillsides with the uilleann pipes once again, and some very earthy percussion. It almost acts as a very calm inhale before a very, very powerful exhale that we find in the last two tracks here. With pyrotechnic and polyphonic a cappella between Kate and the trio, building tension and arising, the skies and sounds explode with firework fright. Gilmour lends his hand in Rocket's Tale to some searing leads, echoing the brilliance that was already displayed by the vocal demonstration earlier. Elliott lends a very heavy hand into the drum work, which sends every mortar-like fill and movement into the night. It is really kind of like a firework display in its delivery and the composition of it. It's a flash of vibrancy with sonic potency and dazzling effect, and it all ends as soon as it began, as we're left in a smoke-filled space. This is easily one of Kate Bush's most explosive moments that I've heard, and it's an explosion that's warranted emotionally. And then concluding the album, kind of on a somber and more thoughtful note, is the ever-powerful This Woman's Work. Describing a turbulent delivery with unknown results, Bush ends the album, like I said, on a very somber note with an ambiguous ending. Very sensitive piano and an unfearing delivery make this one of the most powerful songs that I can remember and think of hearing ever. I also really appreciate that in this song, Bush chose to write from the man's perspective, not from necessarily the woman's, who's waiting and unable to help the woman, his wife, in the delivery room. I just think that it's really unique for her to take this standpoint and perspective in her songwriting, which, like I said, once again lends its hand to how strong her songwriting is. And all of this track is born with the exact amount of awareness and thoughtfulness and care that a subject like this should be given. Alright, well, I didn't mean to rip my outline in half here, but that's what I think of each of the songs on the album. But now let's get into my favorite moment, my favorite lyrics, and my song rankings for this one. I've just kind of taped it back together. My favorite moment is the musical explosion in Rocket's Tale. I mean, that's a moment that it feels like in an album listen you've been building up to. That's a huge climax. That is that moment of grandeur that we've kind of lacked throughout most of the album before. And not that it needed it, but it's so warmly welcomed and received here on the second to last track of the album. And what an explosion it is, of course because of Kate's, of course because of the tense buildup, but as well as Gilmour's guitar here. And then my favorite lyrics on the album have to be taken from the very emotional last track, this woman's work. And they are as follows. I should be crying, but I just can't let it show. I should be hoping, but I can't stop thinking of all the things we should have said that were never said. All the things we should have done that we never did. All the things that you needed from me. All the things that you wanted from me. All the things that I should have given, but I didn't. Oh, darling, make it go away. Just make it go away. So once again, it just shows so strongly how the writing from Kate is so effective. That is, to me, one of the most underrated aspects of Kate Bush herself is her writing. And once again, for her to take the perspective of the man, unable to do anything, perhaps feeling emasculated in some ways, thinking of the regrets, the things that he may never get to say, for her to put it into the words so direct and respectful as they are here, is just really strong. For her to write down, I should be crying, but I can't let it show. I should be hoping, but I can't stop thinking. It's like the man wants to put on a strong image, and yet he feels internal weakness, which is okay. He should be in a situation like this. So it's just really cool how she captures these ideas in the song, in the lyrics, and in the story. And then getting into my song rankings for the album, they are as follows, from my favorites to my least favorites. And by the way, just for the song rankings here, there is no song on here that out of 10 I would perhaps rate below an 8. You know, this is an album full of 10s and 9s, so an 8 may be the weakest, but it's not a weak song, you know what I mean? The Sensual World, The Fog, Reaching Out, Rocket's Tail, This Woman's Work, Deeper Understanding, Heads Were Dancing, Never Be Mine, Love and Anger, Between a Man and a Woman. And I think that I said never be mind. I definitely meant never be mind. This is a really, really fantastic album. It does have a certain atmosphere to it that if you're not involved or interested in that atmosphere from the first two songs, I don't think that you'll enjoy it. But this is a very warm, a very fluid, a very deep album with a lot of musical talent, a lot of great songwriting, and a lot of story and heart. So let me know what you guys thought of this album. You can let me know in the comments below. You can also let me know your favorite moments, your favorite lyrics, and your personal song rankings. I would love to hear them. You can leave all that down there. You can also follow me in a bunch of places. You can support the channel on Patreon. But I hope that you come back tomorrow. I hope that you come back in general at some point for whatever else we got going on. But thank you so much for being here. And I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.